We're good.
Everyone, welcome to the Windbreakers podcast. I'm Yahtzee Croshaw. I'm joined by Marty and Jay. Our usual producer
Hello.
isn't in this week,
No.
so we won't have any sort of visual aids for you.
He's
Rip
got,
Eric.
yeah, Rip Eric. No, not Rip Eric. He was on a nice little holiday.
Oh, he's
He'll be
holiday.
back for tomorrow's pods. I'm hosting once again, chat. Let me know how the volumes are, if any of us are loud or quiet, and I can fix that. Otherwise, we got a wonderful show for you guys today.
You'll
Oh,
just have
yeah.
to imagine the things we're talking about, how it used to work,
There you go.
where everything was handed to you, young, grateful little sods. Yes, well, this week we're talking about hand-holding as a concept. What? Wah, wah, woo, wah, 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 wah. How much is too much hand-holding? Is there such a thing as too much hand-holding? Is it bad? Is it good? What was it specifically brought this to your mind, Marty, if I might ask?
A lot of the scuttlebutt surrounding Crimson Desert a few weeks ago was about the, this is a very on-rails game that is holding you by the hand for the first X hours, but then once it lets go, everything's fun. And so I kind of want to just talk about like that onboarding process. Like what do we expect from a game in 2026? Who does it well? Who doesn't? What can we learn from that?
Well, I wouldn't have said. I don't know if I know they've changed it, and like the reviews have improved since they've changed it. But Crimson Desert certainly seemed like something that needed a lot of onboarding, for it is such a complicated game.
Sure, I don't think everything, people will often kind of hold up something like a Souls game on a pedestal of every game should be like this, but I just don't think that's the case. I think a lot of games take quite a bit of onboarding, but there's a kind of a good and fluid way to do that, and there's a clunky and chunky way to do that.
I mean, it does raise the question of how much is necessary. I think there's a lot of games that you can pretty much figure out if you just because there's only so many buttons you can press.
Sure.
Yeah, and it depends on the
Uh,
genre as well, right? Because if you're playing an action game, you can kind of fiddle with the controls to the point where you understand what you're doing, or an FPS, right?
Yeah.
That kind of interaction language is always the same, with the triggers and jumping and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it's also the when do you teach someone something? We talk a lot about like if you over tutorialize, over handhold at the beginning, and the thing you're teaching us isn't going to be useful for another 5, 10, 20 hours. Like, what's the point of trying to even teach us at that point if we're not going to have like a place to apply what we've learned almost
Yeah.
immediately?
Well, that's the rub, isn't it? I did a whole video on tutorial levels back in the day,
Yeah.
which I was always fond of. The old Hazard course from Half-Life, or the Lara's Mansion from Tomb Raider,
Yeah.
where they teach you all the little things you have to learn in the main game as an entirely separate thing you would play before you'd played the main game.
Mm-hmm.
But it was kind of like, taking a driving lesson and then having to jump right into driving the NASCAR Speedway.
Yeah. I feel like it's a game. I was thinking of like a couple of recent examples of games and how they've either succeeded or failed in onboarding. And I know one of the biggest games this year so far, and all three of us played, was Pocopia. And that was an example of a game that has quite a few systems and mechanics and introduces things going kind of deep into the game. But I think does a good job in its first 45 minutes or hour of kind of, it does guide you by the hand, needs in new elements and ingredients, but does so at a rate to where you kind of teaches you a thing, you apply that knowledge, and then it assumes you've learned it before moving on to the next thing.
And then moves on.
Yeah, which I feel is always good.
That's actually a good example because Pocopia lets you find your own level.
Yeah.
Because what I found in that game is that it's got all these like additional mechanics that it introduces over the course of the game, but it doesn't prevent you from using them before it teaches you about them.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember very distinctly in the Viridian City section where you got to get the electrics working and you've got to like unflood some places. You're quite free to do that whenever you want.
Yeah,
I've done a bunch of it.
Pretty easy.
Yeah.
I figured out pretty easily that you connect things to power sources with wires. So I started at the lighthouse before anyone told me to. I unflooded Meowth's house before he told me to, which was, and it's funny when that happens, and it's always fun when the game like allows for that. Like, so Meowth says, "Hey, before we do anything, we've got to unflood my house. Let me show you to my house, and I'll show you the problem." And you go there, and he's like, "Hey, someone unflooded it already."
Yeah, the worst thing is when that happens and it kind of resets it and makes you do it again. And you're like, well, that kind of discourages me from any experimentation before I'm directly told something. Whereas, I completely agree. I like being able to solve problems before they were even presented to me as problems.
And it's better for if you're playing the game a second time. And you don't necessarily
can
want to
just
have
do
to
it.
sit through the whole tutorial again. That's the thing that people find annoying about like the forced tutorial.
That's a really good example. I've been playing a lot of retro games recently, and the onboarding for FF8 might be some of the worst I've seen because they contextualize it. Yeah.
Well, I'd say
Carry on.
FF8 was still in the era when we all were all expected to read the manual before we played the game.
Well, okay, so to that point, they contextualize it as a school, right? You're learning in the garden. And they say, hey, before we set out to the fire cavern, you can have a read of your like go to your desk and read, like redo some lessons and like learn some stuff. And because I was streaming it, I was like, should I do this? I know how to play the game. And everyone was like, no, you should probably read up on some stuff. So I spent an hour reading through all of the crazy systems in that game. I was like, okay, I feel ready now. Went to the fire cavern, and then they started in-game teaching you how to do it.
Yeah.
So I had to sit through more tutorials of the things I'd already seen, and I'm like, I understand why these exist, but I was just doing the same thing twice, and it was literally a couple hours of just teaching base mechanics.
Yeah.
But that's because that game's overly complicated in itself, but it really does depend on the genre and the time period. We've really come a long way with tutorialization and stuff like that.
Yeah. RPGs of that era were interesting in that they would oftentimes have a literal room or character, or in Final Fantasy VIII's case, your desk, like your curriculum. They would have it be a place you can visit to learn everything. Like Final Fantasy VII has like the upstairs of a bar that's full of dudes. I think Chrono Trigger has a room full of a bunch of people who will teach you stuff as you talk to them. Earthbound has the library.
Does that as
Yeah.
Final Fantasy VI does that as well. In like the first town, there's just this one building that's just full of people who will all give you one tutorial.
And
and they'll kind of like break the fourth wall and talk about the game as a game, that kind of thing.
And there are tests.
Very awkward.
Yeah.
In 8, there are tests you can take to increase the money you earn from your job. You can prove you know the mechanics, and then they'll pay you more money. And I'm like, this is really odd. This is really, really weird.
Yeah.
It's. Oh, sorry, after you.
Oh no! I was gonna steer us towards another recent game that I know all of us have played and kind of try to unpack that.
Okay, well, tell us about that, because I was going to go into a broader conversation.
Okay, I wanted to another big game of the year. All three of us played Resident Evil 9, which I think handled its onboarding in a different way. The onboarding in a game like that is a little bit part of it kind of assumes maybe you've played these games before, but it's interesting that it does the thing where it gives you a very small, self-contained, pretty railroaded experience in Grace's opening thing, on the walk to the hotel and everything, to where it'll teach you the fundamentals. And then it does that thing, Yahtzee, I really like the way you always put it, of kind of the piece of paper that keeps unfolding. And that's how the game is able to dish out information to you without it ever... Because if you just started off the game and you had the entirety of the clinic, you'd feel like you were underwater. But I think the way it kind of unfolds its play space, getting larger and larger, makes everything kind of palatable.
Resident Evil isn't that mechanically complicated a game, of course. And the problem is when a game gets too complicated and there are things that need to be explained to the player. Like half stuff in Crimson Desert, like half the weirdo button combinations you have to memorize to get through the combat.
Yeah.
And I think the problem with the games being bad at explaining stuff is that it's only really a problem until you figure it out. And you feel weird complaining about it in a review, saying, oh, this was difficult to figure out, but what should it matter once you figured it out? And I think that's what leads to the sort of conversation you have with people who are really into Dark Souls. They said, oh, no, this is because they've all figured it out. They've gone through the process of figuring it out. And to them, it feels second nature now because they're used to it.
Yeah.
And it's hard to think back to how you felt before you'd figured it out.
Sure. Yeah, to put
100%.
yourself in that place, especially if it's something you've been playing for the better part of, several
Yeah,
years or decades or your entire life or whatever.
yeah. So is it really a valid criticism to complain that something is hard to understand if there is a point when you do understand it? I suppose
I think
that's
it
what
is
that's what
a
people.
valid
And
criticism.
this, I mean, this is why people complain about hand holding. They say, "Yeah, like you should know all this," or and in some cases, learning how to do it is part of the experience. You could argue that about Dark Souls. It's certainly the case in shit like Tunic and your Metroid Brainia style games.
Yeah.
Yeah, knowledge, right? That's part of the games in general. Like once you know the boss's attack patterns, you now understand how to have a better chance at defeating it. Knowledge is a part, like a
Yeah,
knowledge check is a part of nearly all games,
Yeah.
regardless of whether they're like a puzzle game or an action game. But I think like thinking back to from a design perspective, you should always assume the person who is playing the game has never played before. Because it's a good question with Resi 9. We were talking about it's the ninth game. Well, it's not even the ninth. It's the however many they've done, but the ninth in the main line. Is it fair to assume that the player would have played one before? Or like, do you have to think, well, actually, no, Keith has never played any Resi game and he's decided to start here. Like, we have to onboard him onto how these mechanics work, otherwise, he cannot access this game or is going to have a horrible time. So, there has to be some form of hand holding. I just think games should, kind of like Pocopia, put a little bit more effort into giving players who already have that knowledge ways to circumvent the tutorial, not necessarily skip it, but like prove that they know and the game acknowledge that. I think there's a lot of satisfaction there.
Hmm. Sticking with
yeah.
Capcom, they've had two big games early this year, with Pragmata
Ooh.
being the second one, which obviously Yachts reviewed that last week. We'll have some more videos about that in the near future, maybe even a spoiler cast down the road, but we wanted to give folks time to play it. That had an interesting system in that it did a handful of things and mixed them together. One being we won't teach you something until the moment you need to use it. So there's a story
Yeah.
reason early on that teaches you how to use your kind of built up whatever rage mode for that Diana will like go wild and then freeze everything
God
around
of
her.
War.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
ostensibly that same thing, but it teaches you.
That game had a that game had a tricky job to do because it's the combat only really works with both of its elements in play at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you play as both Hugh, who shoots things with a gun, and Diana, who hacks robots to make them vulnerable to the gun. I think it pulls it off pretty well because in your first combat encounter, your first instinct is you shoot the robots, and
Yeah.
what you quickly learn doing that is that doesn't it's not very effective at all.
Yeah.
Like you do tiny chip damage, and your character keeps going, "This isn't working very well at all."
Yeah, all your guns have relatively limited ammo.
Yes.
Even your rechargeable gun takes a while after you empty the
Yeah.
clip.
And when you hold the aim button, like the interface for both shooting the enemy and the hacking interface comes up at the same time, and you just like press different buttons to choose which one to interact with. And I think it all comes together quite well in that game.
And it also does a good
100%.
thing of it keeps all of those little tutorials, it keeps in an easy to find menu to where you can relearn any mechanic. And then it also has those Metal Gear Solid-esque VR missions, those training missions that you
I
could do.
appreciated those.
Yeah, and it's for kind of like, learning advanced techniques or pushing your combat or traversal to the limit, but it also rewards you with upgrade stuff that's genuinely useful, because upgrading your character in that game feels actually useful.
That's something I've been meaning to bring up about Pragmata, because remember me complaining how Resident Evil 9 doesn't have a mercenaries mode?
Yeah.
Pragmata is full of that shit. It's got the VR missions. I mean, after you finish the game, it unlocks a whole like extra hard new game plus, where you basically play through all the areas again, doing like harder boss fights to unlock additional, even harder challenges.
Yeah.
It just keeps going.
Yeah.
And it's certainly
It does.
something I appreciate in a game like that, where the combat is the selling point.
The problem was Resident Evil 9 did have a mercenaries mode, and it was that pretty boring Leon section in Raccoon City. So it just had a bad mercenaries mode that it made you play for 2 hours.
Basically.
Yeah.
I think
If
in
I was
regards
to-
to carry on.
Okay, well, if I was to nominate a game that's like the king of annoying, overly tutorializing stuff, it would probably be Zelda.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's the fucking thumbnail, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Like the fucking owls. Have I explained this to you properly yet?
Yeah, yeah. Or every time you literally restart the game, not like a new save file, just reload the save file. When you get each color of rupee, it'll be like, oh, by the way, a green rupee is worth 1. And you're like, motherfucker, I know that. Why are you telling me this?
So it's not just the tutorial, it runs through the entire game. I'm thinking about every time you do something that unlocks like the next part of a dungeon, like the camera has to be wrenched from your control. They will literally point the camera at the door you just unlocked, show the door unlocking, and then have a little musical chime going and all the time I'm going, yes, I know that door's open. I would like to go into that door now. Give me control back, please.
But you also have to consider the opposite end of the spectrum. You, even when you were younger, right? You were, I'm assuming, proficient at playing games. They also have to assume like literal tiny baby children are playing this, and they might get lost in that room for hours because they don't have the spatial awareness that you do. So it might be annoying that they're like just showing that like camera move and that sweep, but it does help a lot of people who might not be at the same kind of gaming level as you know.
Yeah, I do wonder if a Zelda game could ever do the. I mean, Zelda games don't really. They don't really trade in difficulty. They'll occasionally be like a master quest or a second quest kind of thing. But I always wonder if like a Zelda game could ostensibly do what Silent Hill does with separate difficulties for puzzles and for combat. Like, could there be a Zelda game to where you could be like, well, I want the combat to be pretty easy, but I want the dungeons to have the most obtuse puzzles as possible, or I want you to give me 0 hints or that kind of thing.
It would be a bit of a pain in the ass having to redesign the dungeon 3 times for every difficulty setting. I guess you could just remove the camera pointing to doors and going
Yeah, maybe some simple things like that. Yeah,
because I've played a lot of games where I'll pull a switch that does something and I just can't figure out what the switch actually did. Like what was I doing last?
So
I was just replaying the original Quake just last night, and I was playing one of the later levels in like the 4th episode, and you'll pull it and you press a switch and go, right, that did something. And then you go back to the last room, which was just like 4 identical corridors, and you've completely forgotten which one you came down.
I had a similar thing in Pragmata. Later on, you learn an ability like early on you find these like weird kind of crystals that are like fucked up 3D printer refuse. And you get the ability to like dismantle them so you can move by or pick up their consumables or anything. When they were teaching me that, I must have looked at my phone for a second or something happened in the second they taught me, and then it took me out of the cutscene and was like, you need to remove it. And I was like, what button does that? Like what? Like, and I'm just like, okay, there's not that many buttons. I'll be able to figure it out. And eventually I realized it was like L1 and it's on a bit of a cooldown, but just a thing like that, which is 100% my fault for looking away. But I feel like that kind of happens to everyone if a game doesn't, but at the same time, you don't want it to Netflix you where it's just, or like,
I know it was you. It was you yourself who said to me when we were playing Split Fiction that basically every game's designed like you're looking at your phone half the time. And so apparently they need to do that.
Yeah, I mean, apparently,
because people like you, like,
I like to think of myself as relatively attentive when it comes to games, but no, I'll definitely zone out.
You know what? I almost did something very similar. Like I sort of didn't notice that particular tutorial window. I think I only realized what button to press because I'd sort of seen the button icon in like half, like just a glimpse of it, and was able to recall that when I was put on the spot.
Sure. Yeah.
But maybe it's just that the game didn't tutorialize that well. I mean, it could be like the window.
You both had that.
Yeah.
Issue.
Maybe the window wasn't noticeable enough because, as with a lot of games these days, it's quite a busy game at all times. You got to focus on the environment, and the HUD is covered in stuff as well.
And it is it is a hold multiple buttons down. Like you have to hold down the one trigger to pull up the hacking thing, and then use the face buttons to navigate the hacking thing.
I call it the ninjutsu.
Yeah, almost like the weird Monster Hunter claw people get. Two other, or I guess a couple other recent games that brought things to mind. I was playing through this Replaced. Have you guys played any of that? That kind of cinematic 2D HD.
Yes, I played through a bunch of games last week. I played through Replaced amongst others.
Okay, so I didn't play through the entire thing.
Yeah, I played it through to the end. I rather enjoyed it.
I've enjoyed what I've played so far. It does do one thing that even the best games, even something like Inside does, to where there are certain chase sequences where it feels like I needed to die and fail in order to understand what the game
Yes.
wanted from me, because the game is very
It's yeah.
pretty, possibly to a detriment, like we've talked about before, to where it could
Mm.
a readability
Oof.
problem because it's so
Guidance,
pretty,
yeah.
because I don't know what
Oh,
to interact with.
you're reading aloud my very thoughts.
Yeah,
I considered reviewing it, and one of my main complaints was going to be that like it puts a lot of effort into looking nice, but it's really hard to tell what's a ledge you can jump on and climb
yeah,
across. I mean, there's a bit where you're supposed to uh, follow a yellow line to find like a computer yet to hack,
Mhm.
but I didn't realize I was supposed to jump over a handrail and go into an area that seemed like it would have been an out of bounds area. It's
yeah.
just generally pretty bad at that.
Yeah, and it's just there's just a lot of kind of visual noise on the screen, and it works well in trailers and in motion, but then when trying
Yeah.
to actually solve something, like, oh, this was a log, I didn't realize I was supposed to jump
I don't
over
know,
this log, and I tripped on it and died and had to redo this section.
I don't know if you've gotten this far, but I had trouble figuring out the hacking minigame for a while.
Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah,
Yeah, because they like explain it in text, and I was like, I have no idea what you're on about, game.
yeah,
Teach by doing.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, And I
Pragmata
brought up the
being the
hacking
best example
minigame.
of that.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it
It's a
took me a
good
few
teach.
tries, but eventually figured out you're supposed to pick from a list of options the grid that is like the opposite of the grid you've been given, so
Yeah,
that to fill all the squares white.
yeah, which feels kind of different. Like, isn't, especially coming from a more active take on hacking, like in Pragmata, although obviously there's no
Yeah.
one, perfect way to hack or lockpick or anything
You know,
like that.
I've been running into a lot of hacking and lockpicking mini games lately. It's to the point that I'm going to write a semi-emblematic about it in the near
Ah,
future, I think.
you heard
Yeah,
it here
because
There we
like
first.
go.
it was like 3 games recently. Like it was Pragmata, Mouse PI, and Replaced. They
Yeah.
all have their own take on the hacking mini game, and they all present like vastly different takes on the concept that all do it in a variety of good and bad ways.
You also have Leon's lockpicking of just putting a hatchet in a door and breaking the door.
Yeah, or a chainsaw when he could just remove the bolt.
Yeah,
But rule of cool,
well,
it looked very cool with the chainsaw.
I mean
It was cool.
that could be a valid approach. I mean,
Yeah.
like the hacking mini game in Deus Ex was always just press the button to hack, and then it's just your hacking skill just defines how much time you
Yeah.
have to
Sure.
inspect the data before
Yeah.
you have to quit.
Kick the door in is always an option, but you're trying to do things stealthily, right?
Not when you're big
Yeah,
old himbo
yeah.
Leon Kennedy.
Chainsaw makes a lot of noise when you're trying to not wake the Jarl.
Jarl. The
I
two
won't really
other
getting off topic.
two other recent games that had a thing. Dragon Quest VII's remake does a thing. It's certainly not the first game and not the last game, but every time you reload your save, it gives you a little a refresher on where you're at in the larger story
Witcher 3 is
and
good at that.
where you're at in the micro story you're currently doing, which I really like. That feels like one of those kind of if a game has zero hand holding, you can come back to it after a week or so and lose all memory of what you were doing. So having a soft little onboarding there, I think is really good. You mentioned The Witcher does that. I know Final Fantasy 13
Yeah.
did that. Yeah. I
Well,
always like that.
I've got a little bit of that with. I've got a lot of praise for Pokopia, but I will say I've got that in reverse, which is when I return to the game after a day or two of not playing it, I am kind of like, what was I doing and where am I? And by the time I'm getting through that thought process, 7 Pokemon have come up to me to give me rocks and new tasks, and I'm like, this is too much.
Feels
what's
like
happening?
you should be able to almost like create your own and then like sticky a to-do list of being like, okay, I was planning to build this.
Yeah.
I wanted to solve problems for these 2 people and I wanted to collect 100 X's or whatever.
Because there's like that thing where it tells you here are all of the important and not so important tasks in a list of each area, but they become so full that it becomes like too much.
Yeah,
like
you just
self-imposed
gloss
ones
over it.
would be a good idea for
Yeah.
sure.
I have a potential concluding hot take that
let's
we
hear
could
it.
throw around as a summary. I think that a game that has too much hand holding, or a game that needs more hand holding, is a game that ultimately didn't design its levels well enough. I think that that this can always be solved with level design. I think that you should never have to take control from the player to point the camera at the door they have to go through next. There is always the option of redesigning the room so that
If you
after they
had better framing from that
yeah,
angle, yeah,
that if they
that
pulled the switch, they
yeah,
would instantly be able to see the door they just opened. I think
yeah.
I think it's I think there's you should never have to hold things up with tutorials. You should never have to like freeze the game and say, "Hey, this is the thing you have to do next." It should always be obvious what to do without it being obvious that you're being told what to do. If that makes
Depends
sense.
on the game. Like depends on the genre, right? Because sometimes I've been playing a little bit unsuccessfully, might I add, a little bit of Fear and Hunger, and there's a section in that game where I pulled a lever and it went. You hear something open somewhere, and that
Yeah.
that's interesting because then it's making you realize, okay, I have a point of progression, but it is somewhere, and I need to delve deeper into this nightmare world. And there's
Well,
something fun
the
about that, rather
obtuse
than being like, it
yeah,
opened
yeah.
this, by the way, you know.
The obtuseness is the point in
Yeah, it depends on the
that sort
genre
of
for
game.
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think you hit the nail on the head when it comes to kind of a self-contained or even like a micro goal. I feel like Portal is a great example of that's one of those games that every room is kind of a tutorial and you don't realize it,
Mm.
and the second you step into a room you kind of see everything you need to solve it. And that works because it is like it is a box with an exit, and so like all of the permutations are there. I think it can be more difficult if it comes to, oh, you need to go somewhere across the world, or like how do
Yeah.
you solve this specific puzzle that might have more moving pieces than you think. We played
I mean, it's a classic. The old, what I tend to think of as the naughty dog technique is just occasionally take you up onto the rooftop and saying, "Hey, you see that bit of the skybox over there? That's
yeah
where you were going next."
Yeah, I always think I always like that. I always think that's whether that's elegant or inelegant, I think that's a really nice
Yeah.
way of doing it.
It's folded into the narrative,
Well,
right?
in
Then it can be satisfying.
Yeah.
But whenever it happened in The Last of Us, I was like, okay, well, however much distance there is between there and here is officially how much padding you expect me to go through, is the message I'm getting here.
That's what the game is, Yacht. You're playing a game to
Yes.
enjoy it.
So
Well, it's like, see that in the distance? That's where the next actual thing that matters will happen.
just take me
And
there.
everything between there
Just
and here
teleport
is
me to the
officially...
cutscenes.
But then why aren't all
Yeah.
games just their endings then? All games should be 10-minute long endings. The
Well,
other
fine, but you should know it's when it takes too bloody long is the point.
Oh no,
Yeah.
I got you there. In terms of individual puzzles, I liked how Yahtzee, there was a game you and I played for Yahtzee Tries a couple months ago called Chrono Quartz. That was the one about where you had like the 10 steps before you had to
Yes.
redo the loop. And that
Yes.
at any point you could bring up a menu and ask for a hint to the current puzzle, and it had a 3-hint system, and in between each one you had to wait 60 seconds for the next one to for you to be able to click it. And so it's progressively more specific hints until the third one is just here's how you solve the puzzle. And I like that because it encourages you to, it's like asking chat for a soft hint without asking for like the exact solution.
That
And so it nudges you in the right direction.
They used to be named for that. That was always Sierra's innovation because they published
Point and
hint books
clicks,
for their
yeah.
adventure
Yeah.
games. And the hint books would take the form of special paper with like a special pen that came with it that would reveal the text as you move the pen across the page. And they'd always have 3 hints. The first one was all like, have you tried like looking in the direction of such and such, as like just a subtle hint.
Yeah.
And by the third hint, it just flat out tells you what to do. So
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there's a word for that. It was like the universal hint system or the incremental hint system.
Which I like.
This touches on something that I wanted to make sure we got to before we move to suppies, which was back in the day. Like as I said before, I've been playing a lot of retro games, and there was an expectation that players would have access to either guidebooks or Nintendo Power or such to get through difficult puzzles. A lot of the progression hints were not built into the game because it was a supplementary material. But it's really weird that like that does not really bother me in the terms of like, the 80s and the 90s and early 2000s. But nowadays, when a game expects me to tab out and Google something, I think it's a sin. Like, I'm like, you have failed. And it's weird that they're effectively asking the same thing, but one's on paper and one's on a browser. But yeah, I feel so strongly in two different directions, even though they're the same thing. How do you guys feel about guides and stuff like that?
Well, that takes me back to my old childhood days before the internet, when I was playing like the LucasArts adventure games.
Yeah.
And something like The Secret of Monkey Island could last me for months, if not years, because I didn't have a walkthrough available online whenever. But that was that's why it made it so much more satisfying when I actually made incremental progress. And like if I was stuck somewhere, I'd like have it in my mind while I was doing my daily things at school, and occasionally I'd think, oh, what if I tried such and such, and then I'd run home to try such and such, and it didn't work, and it would shatter my little heart. I'd pour through magazines in the newsagents, looking on the off chance that they'd publish a walkthrough for a game, or that someone would have asked a question in like the Q&A section of the tips section in the magazine, relating to what I was having trouble with.
And it is funny because those games are, in hindsight, most of those games are relatively short. So if you did have those, like a hint book at the start, you'd be like, oh, I finished this game in a night. Like, that's not getting my enjoyment's worth of this thing that otherwise would take me weeks, if not months.
I mean, later in life, when I was still playing adventure games, but I did access the internet, I'd always I'd sold them within days and then hate myself for it.
Yeah.
Said, no. I mean, Zack McCracken and the Alien Mindbenders, it took me like 2 years to finish that.
Yeah.
Certainly got my fucking money's worth.
Yeah. Whereas if you look at a long play, it's probably like 4 hours long or whatever, if that.
I know. But because, I was getting my money's worth, I could really take the time to examine every inch of the game and develop theories and develop like keener understanding of all the characters. It was generally you'd have a much more personal relationship with the game.
There is a positive to getting stuck. Like getting stuck can somehow cause you, sometimes can cause you to think about the game in a different way, to explore, solutions that you wouldn't have explored otherwise, to wander around and appreciate the environment you're in. Like, there is a limit. There's a certain point where, I'm not having fun anymore, but a little bit of stuck is nice.
I certainly run into those a lot.
Yeah.
Like, I've gone everywhere and I have no idea what to do next. And it's clearly supposed to be obvious, but I've just missed something. That's where it's
and when you do find out, there's one of two reactions. You're either like, oh, this was really fucking dumb of me that I didn't pick up on this, or how the fuck did you possibly expect me to pick up on this? Like, this is one of those insane puzzles that's just think like a game designer.
It's really frustrating because I feel like, okay, so we think of a guide, right? A guide book. You have a companion thing for your game in the late 90s or whatever. In that, the developers can control the degree at which they hint things, and then maybe have like a thing at the back of the book which is like, okay, well, here's the actual answer, right? If you really just want to push yourself, that's the same as having a hint button in the game, right? Here's a small hint. Oh, you can't get it. Here's just the answer, right? This is how you get past it. It would also encourage discussion with your friends, because I'm young, I guess, like at the playground, right? Well, I can't get past this thing. Have you tried this? Have you tried that? Like, that's really valuable. But I think one of the problems nowadays, and why alt-tabbing to Google something feels like a sin to me, is because of the internet, things become solved. They're not. You can't go to an IGN article to give you hints on how to do a thing. It is, here is the answer on how to solve this puzzle.
Yeah.
Read past this point to be told what to do. And like even in mystery games, like the beginning weeks of Animal Well was magical because nobody knew. But now that everything's solved and you can just look things up, some of that I love Animal Well. I think it's a fantastic game, but some of that magic has been diminished because of the internet, right? Not because of the game design itself.
Yeah, I suspect that's a big reason why point-and-click adventure games don't have the popularity as a genre as they used to have.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you kind of rely on a singular twist, even if that twist is just a solution to a puzzle, it's hard to, I guess, get repeat viewings.
Now, the only thing that gives anyone pause is sort of the deep lore experience, like your Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah, or
Or
even
Yeah, your
there's
souls.
yeah, there was even like
Yeah.
Resident Evil 9 had some insane game spanning puzzle. And you had to like take a certain item to a certain place and fuck with some clocks and stuff. And like eventually people just data mined it, and it didn't even give anything like fun or anything. But it's like, well, what are the point of these
Ugh.
big ARGs if people are just gonna work
I know.
backwards? And
I mean, PT, someone figured out in a day.
yeah, it was like it aired at one night, and it was like at Gamescom, and I went to bed, and in the morning people were like, oh, it's Silent Hills, we figured it out. Jesus, how did that happen?
It can also
I think
like
it was
alter
data
people's
mining again.
yeah. It can alter people's opinion, right? Like, let's say there is a puzzle that's intentionally designed to be a head scratcher, but the solution to overcoming it is kind of really entertaining. A person who just gets frustrated and looks things up because that's what they're used to in the modern day is not going to have that level of satisfaction for overcoming that challenge or that puzzle.
Oh,
So their
you
overall
kids.
opinion of it might be like, "Oh, this game sucks," right? But actually, if you played it as the devs intended, then you may have enjoyed it
Bloody
more.
kids don't know they're
Fucking kids.
born.
That's Shrek.
Get off Google, you twat.
Shrek's Scottish. I was doing a Yorkshire accent.
Oh, my mistake.
Mine started it. I'm sorry.
Shall we go to Super Chats then?
That would be
Good stuff, it is.
super.
Right,
Chat.
well, Raven starts us off. Gives
Scroll.
$5 to give the weekly word of the week. Well, this week, it's more of a phrase of the week. Week 47, a Pyrrhic victory.
Is that where you like winning the battle but
I
losing
know
the
what that
war?
is.
It's a Pyrrhic victory is a battle that you've won, but in doing so, put yourself in a worse position.
You've lost a lot. Yeah.
Right? Like you've used up all your resources, and well, there's probably a good comparison with the way the American military applied the war in Iran, in recent weeks.
Sure.
I mean they won like physical battles against Iran, but they're losing because
We lost me being able to get gas for under $4 a gallon.
Yeah, because it's not. Because turns out it's not that kind of war.
Yeah.
Covered in Sponges gives $5. It says game advertises 40 hours of gameplay. I get 120 because I'm always lost.
That's a secret. That's how you make a long game.
You
Don't
should
think of it
work
as
on
being
your
lost. Think of it
math
as poking
skills.
around. Sometimes it's fun to poke around and see what's going on.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just being chill about knowing where you are.
Smell those
which is
roses.
probably small comfort if you're lost in the Yukon or something.
Sure.
But it's fun in video games. Silas the Hedgehog gives $5. It says, a hand-holding feature I prefer in games is something like Jack 2, where Daxter wisecracks about the tutorial while tutorializing you. Funny and cynical.
How do you feel about kind of fourth wall breaky things? I'm thinking of this might be a little bit different, but when a game character acknowledges a frustration that I currently have, I always get mad at the game.
Yeah.
Like I always bring up in The Last of Us,
Boy
like
in God of War.
Boy in God of War does it, or in The Last of Us 1, Ellie doesn't know how to swim, and so she'll like enter a room and be like, ugh, another water puzzle or something equivalent of that. And I'm like, that's what I'm thinking. You can't poke fun at it. Like, you made this puzzle. You're the reason we're here.
Lampshading.
Which again, maybe Yahtzee's thing is right. Maybe we shouldn't have had that distance between us and the interesting looking city hall that we saw on the roof. Maybe we should just be at the city
Teleport us
hall.
to the ending.
Yeah.
I think if you're going to lampshade something, you've got to then sort of undermine it. So if you've got like, so if you go into a game and like there's a sewer level and the game goes, another bloody sewer level, then you only get points for self-awareness if you then not have a sewer level.
Yeah, or subvert it.
If you think,
unlike any other sewer level you've
subvert
ever
it.
seen.
If you think you're going to have a sewer level, suddenly you fall through the floor and you're in, Wonka's chocolate factory or something.
Yeah.
That's that's the subversion. Otherwise, you're just hanging a lampshade on something being boring and then being boring.
Being boring. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm aware that I'm boring. Now sit there while I bore you. Is what that's communicating.
I don't mind it when like the tutorials are making an effort to be diegetic. Like the boy barks where he's just like, if you don't really know the puzzle, he's like, have you tried this? I agree, Marty. I feel insulted when the child tells me how to do the puzzle.
Yeah.
But I like the effort to make it diegetic.
the game has no way of distinguishing puttering around because we don't understand what to do and puttering around because we're just checking out the place.
Yeah. Again, it
That's fair.
almost needs a button. Be like, let me opt in to this. Like, let me ask you. Let me go up to you and ask you what's going on in this situation.
I've seen
The
games.
sun help button.
Yeah.
I've seen games do that where there'll be like a little button prompt, say, "Do you need a hint? Press this button there." Well, I guess that kind of breaks immersion.
Yeah. I mean,
Which is
that's
something. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's why God of War Ragnarok didn't do anything like that, because that game was very big on immersion.
sure.
That's why it's a single take.
Yeah.
Well, they do things like that. The boy will suggest like puzzle hints to you if you take too long. They do it,
But it
But
doesn't.
they don't do it as
it's
like a button
diegetic.
prompt.
No,
Yeah.
it's diegetic.
Yeah,
It's the
they're
voice
kind of
acting,
obsessed with
yeah.
keeping. Yeah, it's not like I just finished replaying Ocarina of Time, which famously has like the Navi button. You know, that has a
Hey,
literally.
listen.
Yeah, the version I played, the PC port, patches out her saying, "Hey, listen." So it's like, you know, like the little flash is still there for her to talk, but you can more easily ignore it. And yeah, I mean, that was
less annoying. Would have been less annoying if she'd had a very sexy voice rather than a high pitched one. Hey, listen.
See, that's what the game needs. The remake needs us to be able to choose 10 different voice options for how we want to goon out to Navi.
I don't want to think of Navi with sexy voice. Thanks.
Yeah.
Dr. Theo gives $5 and says, "I'm the type who gets lost incredibly easily, so I don't mind some hand holding. Games that don't have any tend to make me very confused."
Yeah. I mean, the problem
Fair
is,
enough.
I guess, scaling it to, you know, in a perfect world, the game knows, without you having to tell it, the game can tell what kind of a player you are and can adapt things under the hood without you knowing it. That is a perfect world. That
Well,
is not how
you
most games
know,
work.
It is a perfect world. Games have tried, but there's a lot of nuances between different modes of behavior, and often modes of behavior can indicate multiple different things. I mean, you look at something like Silent Hill Shattered Memories. They tried to interpret your personality based on what you did, but it just didn't really. Well, one of the things they did was like one of the things I remember from that game was that if you went into the women's toilets, the game would like tweak things to make it because it assumed you were some kind of sexual deviant.
Yeah.
So like all the female characters would start having big tits.
Yeah.
And so
It's like,
but I didn't
no,
go
I
into the female
explore
toilets.
everything in a game. Like,
No.
Yeah.
yeah.
Because it was approaching our behavior as if it was the behavior of a person rather than the behavior of someone being controlled in a video game.
Sure,
I don't think
sure,
it didn't really factor that in.
Yeah.
Yeah, you being a sexual deviant is like a byproduct of it, not the cause. right?
Yeah.
You just happen to be a sexual deviant.
Yeah, it's completely.
what
I'm an
game-
unrelated
yeah.
sexual deviant. Yeah.
It's unrelated to exploration.
You know what game did it better? Psycho Mantis in Metal Gear Solid 1.
Yeah.
Like if you saved a whole
Games
bunch
you
and said, "You are an extremely methodical person,
Yeah.
aren't you? Probably
Yeah.
panicking that you haven't seen everything yet."
Yeah. Yeah, or even reading the previous games on your memory card.
Yeah. Oh, you like Castlevania, don't you?
Yeah, it's kind of exactly what you hit the nail on the head when you were talking about God of War, about a game can't tell if you are, because if you entered a room and there's a giant ornate door, in real life most people's attention would immediately go to the ornate door. But the way we play games, it's like, oh, the ornate door is the way forward, so I'm going to look at everything else before I go to the ornate door, because that will probably, cause me to leave this room.
Yes, that is the ingrained attitude of us veterans, I fear.
Yeah, and so then that's a case where you have a voice in a side character being like, "Hey, did you check out that door?" It's like, well, I'm aware of the door. Obviously, I just don't want to look at the door right now. Yeah.
Yes, of course I noticed the fucking door. I'm
It's the biggest thing
investigating
in the
this nondescript shadow. Because that's exactly where I'd put a hidden coin or something.
Yeah.
That exact same thought process as well, if you expand that over to like an open world, you can set up those long-term goals, and we've spoken about this before, those long-term goals of the castle in the distance, right? And this is where you need to end up. You can now potter around and do what you want. At least you know the direction you're going. It's a little bit easier to maintain that focus and come back to the game because of that. But when you get more linear and there's just branching paths along a linear like line, it can get a little bit harder to come back to it and be like, ironically, it can be harder to come back to that than a big open world thing.
Yep.
Well, Speaking of which, Ipasieluk gives $2 and says, many games to replay, but the tutorial deters me. And that, I think, is one of the unsung advantages of the tutorial level as a concept.
Yeah, if it's fully skippable.
Sometimes I just play the tutorial level for fun.
Yeah.
Because this is what's thoroughly discussed in my video on the subject. Because sometimes it's nice to just be in a zero consequence environment or in the environment of the game before everything goes to shit, so you can soak up the atmosphere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or even just get
Also,
yourself acclimated with it, or reacclimated with controls.
Titanfall 2's little test level where you have a timer to get through it as quick as you can. That was always really entertaining.
Yeah, that became almost like a goal for like who's the best player in the world who can clear this in 15 seconds or
people
whatever.
like speedrun it and shit. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, people speedrun the Half-Life Hazard course, I think.
Yeah. That's why I liked Pragmata bringing those back. I thought that was neat.
Sovereign46 gives €5. Says premarital hand-holding is definitely a sin. It's in the Bible or something.
It is. That's true. We learned that in I Am Jesus Christ.
I know. If you're a fan of the Bible, check out my most recent Yahtzee tries, in which we were Jesus Christ.
And we learn what AD means.
Well, some of us learned what AD means. Some of us already knew because we weren't raised in the American education system.
Half of us learned what AD means.
Hey, Jay, what does AD stand for?
After death.
Boom! Thank you, Jay. See?
Well, thank you for defeating my point, Jay. I assumed someone who wasn't raised in the American education system would know what AD stands for.
Oh,
I thought it was like I thought it meant after death, as in like after the death of Christ.
USA.
Well,
that's what I thought, Jay.
I asked Marty, what would you call the years between the birth of Christ and the death of Christ, if that was the case?
Party fun times.
It stands for
we don't think about party fun times
the
enough.
Year of our Lord.
We don't.
I don't think this speaks to the American healthcare. Lol. Sorry, I paid a bill today. It's on my mind. I don't think it speaks to the American education system. I just think it speaks to how dumb me and Marty are.
Think about it. But also Nick and also KC. We got a lot of dummies here.
We have a lot of dummies here.
Yeah, team dumb.
I don't think why is the person who dropped out of high school the token intellectual around here?
You're not. You're the token intellectual. You're not there.
Yeah.
Anyway, Sinus the Hedgehog comes back with $5. Says depends how many moves and features the game has. Too much, and you'll need constant hints as reminders. Little to normal, you only need them once or twice. Well, then why don't one-on-one fighting games have constant tutorials? Sinus the Hedgehog. Hey, answer me that.
Oh, different genre. I think it always comes back to pacing. I feel like a game like FF8, I know it's on my mind at the moment, is such a complicated game with its systems and how interwoven they all are, but it onboards all of them all at once, rather than being like, now that you've got used to this aspect, a little bit later on, a few hours later, by the way, you can try this. Oh, cool, I didn't know that. But if you replaying the game, if you already knew those systems, you could have a great time just breaking the game from the get-go rather than having to sit through an hour of tutorials. But I think as an industry, we have grown from that kind of how to tutorialize complex systems over a longer period rather than all at once.
Just bring back instruction booklets. Everything's fine.
Especially think of Donkey Kong Bonanza and how weird it felt for that game to have a skill tree when you contrast it with the team's previous game, Super Mario Odyssey, which of course has no skill tree. You just have all your abilities from the word go, and as such, you can just jump right into it and start making it your bitch, as it were.
Yeah. Also thought that was pretty strange.
Agreed.
Like, it felt un-Nintendo in a way.
That's very much what I said, and everyone nobody listened.
I didn't feel bad. It just felt very un-Nintendo.
Cassandra, that is me. I am the Cassandra of the games industry.
I keep telling people you're Cassandra of the games industry, and they won't listen to me.
I'm always saying that.
I tell them the truth, and nobody listens.
I told my tax consultant that, and she said, please leave.
You've paid your taxes, you can go.
Yeah.
Sir Panzer gives $4.99 and says, just wanted to express my appreciation and support. I remember Marty's IGN reviews and starting to watch ZP in middle school. I'm 30 now. Cheer, lads. Well, thanks for making me feel old.
Hey, nothing wrong with getting old. You're distinguished. And I appreciate that.
Look how salt and peppery my beard is these days.
Want a man, want a man, want a man, want a money.
One of these days, and my hairline is receded. I'm just going to have to go for the crew cut or the shaved head one of these days.
Go full Walter White.
Yeah, just rock the old binging with Babish look that so many people on the internet
Yeah, grow
do.
your beard out. Yeah, dude. More power to you.
Sussy Guru 2000 gives €10 and says, it also depends on the player and where they are in their lives. When I only have a limited time in a day to play games, I don't want to be frustrated by the game. Give me my map markers. Well, then you're just zoning out, aren't you? You're zoning out after a long day. And I think the games I want to play during the day when I want to be actively engaged by a game are different to the games I want to play after hours when I want to zone out.
It's a weird we were talking about Pragmata earlier. I unlocked an upgrade and then regretted that I got it because early on in the game there's a button where you just kind of ping the environment, and at the beginning of the game it'll just show you kind of the exit to the area, so you can kind of just be like, okay, this general direction is how I go forward. You can get an upgrade to where that ping will then show you every collectible in the environment.
Yeah.
And when I got that, I was like, well, I don't want to use the ping anymore because I don't want to just like follow where this thing is. I want to explore and try to find everything.
Why there should always be options.
Yeah. So once I got that unlockable, I'm like, I'm just not going to use this anymore.
Dr. Theo gives $5, says, one thing I want to see more is community-made hand-holding. There's the floor notes from Dark Souls and the custom build browser on Deadlock. That's true. A lot of people overlook the fact that Dark Souls is obtuse, but it was kind of designed to be experienced as a community.
Yeah.
With the whole notes thing.
Yeah, putting notes in front of illusory walls and whatnot.
Yeah. And the complex lore that you have to really sort of get onto a fucking wiki to figure out.
Yeah.
Easy peasy lemon squeezy gives $1.99 and says, games are long and life is short. Hold my hand, baby.
See?
You want games to hold your hand. You want them to hold your hand.
Like the battles. I know them.
The Silence the Hedgehog gives $5 and says, you reviewed Might and Magic X way back, saying it practically had no hand-holding, but felt frustrating as some things you actually did need help on. Well, this is the line we must always walk, it seems.
Yeah. It's like you want to be almost stuck. Feeling almost stuck is good.
I think that's a good way of putting
it.
Yeah, you gotta walk the line where you're not just breezing through it without any thought required on your part.
Yeah,
but not stuck fast because you're a big old thicky bobo.
Yeah, no one wants to be a thicky bobo. It's also nice to like get through a boss by the skin of your teeth by only having a little health left, or like making it through. You know, if you only have 2 minutes to escape a building, it feels great if you do it with only 5 seconds left. It feels terrible if you're right near the exit and the 2 minutes goes up and then you have to redo it. So it's
games are about overcoming things like inherently. You're meant to be presented a challenge, whether that's mental or dexterity, and then overcome it, and feeling where that sweet spot is really important.
Yeah, you don't want to undercome.
Blistered Soul gives $1.99, says Outer Wilds is another learning is the point game.
One of the big ones. One of the big ones.
Yes,
I'd go as far as to say it's a Metroidvania.
It's the big brain on Brainia. Also, where is their next game? What's going on here? Why haven't they made another game? No rush, but why aren't you making more games? What's his name? What's the Outer Wilds guys? Not Outer Wilds. Lucas Pope said that he's been working on a bunch of different games, but the reason he hasn't announced anything is because he said he has a legit fear of announcing a mechanic and having AI steal it. And so he's like, I'm just not going to announce anything until the game is out.
It was a genuine fear before, and now it's even more so.
Yeah, because it's not even that like, you would have to copy the mechanic and make a game. Now it's just kind of like, well, you just copy the idea from a mechanic and have computer make game.
AI make it. Makes it poorly, but it can make a foundation, a prototype for sure.
He certainly has been quite a font of unique gameplay concepts over the years.
Certainly.
Let's done that one. Lee Drummond's Nan gives £5 and says, hiya, my question is for Ben. Yahtzee to you, Lee Drummond's Nan. Off topic, but would you consider making a semi-ramble or Let's All Laugh at it, etc., about PT? You know, when I do Let's All Laugh episodes, and this will be coming up pretty soon for fully Ramblomatic fans, I tend to gravitate to stories that feel like they come from the pre-zero punctuation phase of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Because anything else feels too recent. Which sounds weird, I know, because EP started like 20 years ago. But now I'm thinking about it, how long ago was PT? That was like PS3, wasn't it?
No, it was PS4.
It was
I believe it was 2014, 2015.
2015. That's like 10 years ago. 11
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah.
11 years.
And I'm
Is it
imagining,
like-
did you
is
cover
it
it
far
in
enough-
some way back when it came out? I'm sure.
I must have done in some way.
Yeah.
But is that really far enough back in the midst of time that people would be interested? There are people today who haven't heard the story of PT and would be interested in a summary?
Yeah.
Because I doubt it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Considering like every other horror game that came after it was influenced by it.
yeah, without giving anything away, I'm excited. An upcoming video is a topic that I don't even know about. And so I like learning about new things and new weird corners of the industry that I didn't even know existed.
I mean, fuck it, let's not be
100%.
coy. This week's Fully Ramblematic is an interesting moments from gaming history episode.
That I didn't even
I mean,
know.
I've never been
Never even
coy.
heard of it.
I've never been. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I hadn't heard much about it either, but I went looking for interesting stories and I found this one. And the more I looked into it, the more
Yeah.
interested I became.
Fascinating.
So yeah, look forward to that. Toad MZ97 gives $2.99 $8 and says wishlisted Starstruck Vagabond on PS5. Rough date. Oh well, yeah, that store page is up already, is it? Yeah. Starstruck Vagabond is coming to Xbox and PlayStation. We
Yay.
haven't. They've sort of been soft. The like pages have sort of been soft dropped onto the Xbox and Sony stores. So I guess people have already noticed them. But yeah, we haven't properly announced it yet. We will be doing that soon. And then we will announce the date that it comes out. So there you
Yay.
go. Witticism gives $5 and says, I'm a fan of tutorial tool tips that can be turned off from the menu. Not very diegetic, but simple, straightforward, and easy to get rid of. Right, you are.
Yeah, having that
If
option
you
is
want
always
them,
nice.
if you don't.
Also, who's Lee Drummond for Lee Drummond's Nan? Is that like a British
that's
dude?
it was like a recurring gag back in ZP. I did a gag like 2 or 3 times referring to a fictional childhood bully character who I'm referred to as Lee Drummond. And I haven't really used that gag in a while, but people remember it because that's fans for you. Everything you have done is always the most recent thing you've done to at least one person.
It's the lore. I like the Lee Drummond
Yes. Fine. Law. It's law. Tsunami Dusha gives $20. Oh, hang on, missed one. Sinos the Hedgehog 2000. Yeah, that was a sneak preview of an upcoming super chat there. Sinos the Hedgehog gives $2 and says COD handholding, aka constant on rails destruction.
I don't feel
I
like
think that's handholding.
yeah, that's just the delivery method of the game. Like,
It's a linear cinematic game.
Yeah.
yeah,
It's just
corridor
keep
shooter.
doing the thing that precedes the game and nothing else.
yeah,
Or we
Yeah,
will
just because the
kill
game
you.
isn't open and you can go anywhere you want doesn't mean it's hand-holding.
yeah. If anything, that's almost an example of the guiding by level design that Yachts was talking about. Although in a thing like Call of
Kinda.
Duty, it's just a corridor, right?
Yeah. Follow the line. Follow the NPC, usually. Follow
Yeah.
the one token NPC you have in this scene, because they know where to go.
Mhm.
Yeah. Or the light or the animation, the only animation that's happening
Yes.
in the scene. People are drawn to those.
Yes. Basically, the developers of COD are saying, see this NPC that does everything we tell it to? That's who we want you to be. You
Yeah.
be them. We will tolerate no independent thought around these parts, matey. Tsunami Dusha gives $20 and says nothing. As
Douche.
we've come to expect.
We love you,
And
Tsunami
then-
Teacher.
And then Jabbernut Games gives $2 and says, Jamate, love triangle element tattoo under your shirt.
It's not even it's not even showing right now. Yeah, what these?
Yeah, that
Yeah,
thing.
the elements in alchemical symbols. There's a story behind those, but we don't have time to tell the story.
Elements
A
and
superb-
alchemical symbols.
Yeah, he's
It's-
like Jay's
yeah.
just really into Full Metal Alchemist.
It's an
I've
anime.
actually never read it or watched it. It's nothing to do with that. It's actually a Berserk thing.
Yeah, he's
Damn.
into a different anime.
I'll explain it on a personal stream one day. Just ask me in there.
A superb owner member for 28 months in the tip jar. 28 months, that's a lot.
That
Damn.
is a long time.
And then a superb owner gives us $2 and says tutorial NPCs should follow Tsunami Douche's lead.
That'd be terrible
Oh.
tutorials.
Yeah.
They just give you money. You're like, I need to
Just give
learn.
you money and leave.
Tell me how to
Yeah.
leave this castle. Stop giving me money.
You go into the tutorial room and then the NPC just sort of stares at you expectantly. Just goes, For those only listening to the audio version, that was me making a gesture generally towards the room.
Yeah, it was Jim from The Office shrug.
Yeah. Sinos the Hedgehog gives $2 and says, on-screen hints is better than halting pop-ups, aka Doom Eternal. I agree. I hate pop-ups that just freeze the game, especially if it cuts out the music as well.
Yeah.
I don't mind if it's like the first introductory version of a thing. Like they did that in Pragmata, where they'd be like, "You're in action, so we're slowing it down. This
Yeah.
is how you do it," and then they don't do it again. You get one of those per mechanic, and then
Yeah.
after that, leave me be.
You know, I question the point of is when they freeze the game, bring up a pop-up, and incorporated into the pop-up is a video of gameplay of you
Yeah.
doing the thing it's telling you about.
It's just, why did you freeze the game? Because it was doing
Yes.
the gameplay. Yeah.
I feel like we've skipped a step there.
Yeah.
The Goose Chase Music gives $5. Says, a room early in Pragmata made me look up for a hacking terminal to proceed, and that instilled in me that I should be looking around more everywhere.
Yeah, that is a small thing, is doing that. One of the first doors you need to unlock in Metroid Prime, in the original Metroid Prime, has that same thing where it has like 4 switches you need to hit, and 2 are low and 2 are high, and then it teaches you, oh, I need to, take into account all 360 degrees of this room.
Entirety of Stormvale Castle and Elden Ring is designed to make you look up.
Yeah. Yeah, which is always good.
Nick Knoll gives $10 and says, had a professor that had a great saying, you can't learn something unless you almost already know it. Great hand-holding gets you right up to that point, but lets you experience the final catharsis.
It's a great way of putting it.
That's an interesting line.
Yeah, makes sense.
We'll steal that one.
Sinos the Hedgehog gives $5 and says, Sonic Adventure 2 had treasure hunting stages where using too many hint monitors would get you a low rank. You depend on only 1 or 2 for a high rank.
I don't mind that. I don't mind weaponizing hints against you if you need to get the gold medal or whatever. Like,
I don't know. I always think ranking in games. Yeah, I always think ranking in games like that smacks of ableism to me, especially in like those Sonic games where if you got especially in Sonic games where if you get a low rank, the character acts really disappointed and goes, "God, what a stupid bellend I am." Blah.
Sonic games that you play
in myself and by extension you.
Shadow just takes the gun and starts putting it. Look, Shadow, don't put it in your mouth.
No. It's just a puzzle. Celeste is the best example of that, of when they added their amazing, I will always say they're great, accessibility features. Originally, if you use the accessibility features, they disabled achievements. And people got up in arms about that, of like, we wanted the achievements regardless of whether we do it. And I believe they reinstilled the achievements to the accessibility features. I'm sure chat can...
Yeah,
correct me if I'm wrong.
A game should shame you for needing an accessibility feature. I mean, I was talking about that in my emblematic about difficulty settings and how in the olden days they'd always shame you for picking easy. Like it would be called "Can I play Daddy?" and it's a picture of BJ Blazkowicz wearing a bonnet with a pacifier in their mouth. Yeah.
Metal Gear Phantom Pain would put you in a chicken hat. If you like lose a mission enough times, it'll be like, we'll put this on easy mode, but you got to wear this chicken hat. Kojima, you son of a bitch. I want to wear the chicken hat, but I want to keep it on hard. Can we do that?
I mean, what if Billy the Lobster Boy at the carnival is trying to play the game, and now you're just making him feel bad about having lobster claws for hands?
Yeah. He's just a regular boy with lobster claws. He doesn't have that much going on.
Example. Well, that was on that lovely note. That was oh no, it isn't the last super chat. One just came in.
Dun, 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 dun.
Thank goodness we don't have to end this on Billy the Lobster Boy. Sinos the Hedgehog gives $2 and says, "Is the Dark Souls experience better without guides?" See, I don't know. I mean, I got into the game thanks to watching other people's playthrough videos and learning about the lore and using the messages on the floor to figure out where to go. That's what like broke the top of the creme brulee for me. That allowed me to penetrate into and enjoy the game.
That's a great way of putting it. I'm under the impression that I think most people who play these games do at least in some way dip their toes into guides, because I feel like if you like, especially Dark Souls 1, if you don't already know the general direction you're going, it can be very difficult to navigate the world. Like especially if you go down into the graveyard.
the very fact that you can drop hints for other players yodels to me that
Yeah.
is the intended experience from the developer's point of view.
Well, and the fact that it's interesting because we're able to be in the rare positions to where we can see a game like Elden Ring we were able to play before it was released, and then we were able to play it after it was released. And so it is interesting to see after it's released, like there is clearly a meta that people gravitate towards like cheese weapons that end up like, oh, this bleed damage is cheesed or frost stomp is cheesed. And then, that gets patched and everything. But those become cheese methods because people are looking for a way to make it easier for them, whether it's looking up guides or exactly. Yeah. And some of that stuff is in game. Summoning people into your boss fights is an in-game way to an in-world way of getting into these games. So I don't think there's any wrong way to do it.
No.
And another one last super chat. Vivianimus gives $5. It says, unrelated fun fact. In 2010, the US military built a supercomputer for analysis of global weather data out of 1,760 PS3s wired together.
That's sick.
I like that.
Remember when we used to be a society?
Remember when
That's a lot of PS3s.
Remember when CIA was worried that I believe it was Iraq was going to buy, or Afghanistan, one of them early on, were going to buy too many PS2s and use them to like power a nuclear program? Because the PS2s were like the most powerful supercomputer at the time.
Famously, the moon mission had computers less sophisticated than an Xbox 360.
Mm-hmm. Amazing.
At least it didn't.
But that's just the march of tech for you. Well, I think we'll wrap it up. Thanks for listening to the podcast. I was Yahtzee Crowshaw. I was joined by Jay and Marty, as always. Don't forget, if you enjoyed the podcast, to like the video and subscribe, or do whatever the hell you do on Spotify. I presume they have a like system. I don't know.
Sure.
And consider joining the Patreon at patreon.com/secondwind group and be part of making all this content happen. We are mostly funded by viewers like you. So, if we do anything to improve your life, if there is any part of you that thinks your life would be worsened if our content stopped happening, consider doing your part to ensure it keeps happening. You stingy git.
That was beautiful. From the heart.
There you go. All right. Yes, as I said, this week's Fully Ramblomatic will be a Moments from Gaming History episode. And I won't spoil what it's about. It's an interesting story you might not have heard.
It is interesting.
From very retro times.
Mm-hmm.
About as retro as you can get, really.
Yeah, BC,
very retro
one could
times.
say. Was not AD.
No.
It was after the death of something.
That.
I've also got a semi-ram dropping this week, which is on the subject of emotional responses. We'll let you think about that. And I'll have my weekly stream Yahtzee Tries, of course, where I play indie games that will be decided on the day, probably. Oh, and don't forget, big thing this week on Thursday, the Second Wind new game showcase that we've been working on for ages. How many games is it in this? Like 90?
I think it's like close to 90 of them. Yeah, it's going to start at 3 p.m. Central on Thursday. But obviously will be available as a VOD afterwards as well. But a lot of cool announcements there.
Trailers for 90 plus upcoming games and some like exclusive announcements, like world premieres as well. Do a watch along stream, why don't you?
Yeah,
we're done doing the watch along streams. Now we do the thing you do watch along streams about.
You watch us.
Who watches the watchers?
We're in the big leagues now.
It's cuck time, baby.
So yeah, look forward to that. What else we got?
Jay, what do you got?
Yes, I'm working on the next design of. There'll also be this Friday. We're moving next week's dev heads to this week because reasons. So if you want to catch dev heads, it will be this Friday rather than next. And then tomorrow over on my Twitch, I will be continuing the playthrough of FF8. And my God, is that game interesting for better or for worse? Mostly worse.
Yep, I think it's pretty bad. Great vibes and great music. characters I like.
Yeah.
Bad game. Awesome. And then normal streams and whatnot this week. We'll have Hidden Gems. The crew is back normal time this evening. Rewind and Backdrop tomorrow. If you haven't checked out the latest Game Arcadia from Jesse and Jenna on Evo Moment 37 that went up this morning. And then, as a reminder, another big event this weekend on Saturday. I believe we haven't locked down a timing. It's going to be around like 11 Central-ish. We're going to be doing our Doke Till We Die stream, our final episode of our Dokapon playthrough. We will finish our campaign, or we will quite literally die this Saturday.
Please don't die.
I'm going to try not to die because it'd be several of us dying.
It would be sad if you died.
Rip.
It would be.
Super rip. Yeah, that's it for us.
All right. Well, that's it from us. I'll see you all on Wednesday. And until then, have a good old time doing whatever it is you're doing. Bye.
Bye, everyone.